previous session, we have introduced to this concept of SMF distributing the required quality of service related details to different components. So SMF sends SDF templates to UPF. It forwards QoS rules, quality of service rules to the mobile. And SMF also sends something called as QoS profile to GNodeB. And we are more interested in this QoS profile because we learned that based on this QoS profile, only GNodeB creates the required radio bearers and set the properties related to that radio bearers, like how each protocol layer in L2, L1 required to be working for the radio bearer. So all the details would be present inside this QoS profile. So that's why we are going to focus on this QoS profile and study what are the different parameters that are present in it. So this QoS profile is segregated into two categories called as non-GBR flow and GBR flow. Stands for GBR stands for guaranteed bitrate. So non-GBR flow means non-guaranteed bitrate, and GBR is guaranteed bitrate. What is the primary difference? As their name suggests, we can easily understand. Non-guaranteed bitrate flow won't have any guarantee for its data rate. On the other hand, guaranteed bitrate flow would have some data rate associated with it, guaranteed from the network. So at the time when a QoS flow is getting created or getting established, it mandatorily need to be identified as one of these two categories, whether it is a non-GBR flow or a GBR flow. Based on whether it is non-GBR or GBR, its other properties will come into the play. The properties are not exactly equal. Some certain things would be same, but certain things would be extra in each one of them. I will just read these items here that are present in the table. Then later we'll expand them. Non-GBR flow contains quality of service flow ID, 5G QoS identifier, allocation retention priority, reflective quality of service attribute. But this reflective quality of service attribute, as you can see, this dashed line represents that it is an optional element. It may be there, may not be there. That is the purpose of that dashed line there. Similarly, GBR flows contain quality of service flow ID, 5G quality of service identifier or 5QI, allocation retention priority, guaranteed flow bitrate, maximum flow bitrate, notification control, and maximum packet loss rate, applicable for both uplink as well as downlink. Again, in this GBR flow, also two parameters optional, which are represented in the middle of these, dashed line. So notification control and maximum packet loss rate. The remaining things are kind of mandatory. But if you observe one more thing, this 5QI is present in both these flow types, non-GBR flow type or GBR flow type. And 5QI itself is getting divided and containing multiple properties that are listed over here. So in what order we go? First, we look at the individual properties of these non-GBR flows and GBR flows. Then we'll concentrate a little bit more on this 5QI. That will give us the full-fledged understanding. Always remember, this QoS profile comes from SMF to your GNodeB, which kind of gives a direction to GNodeB on what to create. You keep that in your mind. You keep it in your back burner. Okay. Now we are going to study the common parameters that are applicable in all the both the cases. Like I mean GBR cases, non-GBR cases. The first one, quality of service flow ID, a unique ID to identify the QoS flow. As we have seen earlier, there can be multiple QoS flows created, with each one having a different quality of service implementation. To identify that uniquely, it needs to have a unique ID. And this QFI information is encapsulated in the GTPU header when the data is traveling on the N3 tunnel, and the same QFI ID would be included in the SDAP header on the UU interface, nothing but the radio interface. Two different protocols carrying this QoS flow ID, which is kind of required for detecting the data belongs to which QoS flow. Next, 5G QoS identifier. This is a scalar value, just a number that kind of is used as a reference to a set of QoS characteristics that are already standardized and predefined in your 5G environment. For example, if a quality of service flow is associated with a 5QI or is promised to have a 5QI, whatever the 5QI quality of service parameters that are standardized, all those things would be applicable for that quality of service flow. So basically this 5QI is a group of uh, quality of service properties. So they have created various groups depending on different types of applications that you can have, which requires different quality of service implementations. Based on it, they have standardized the values that are required for different types of applications, and they have associated a number with each combination, each standard combination, and that combination number is what we call as 5QI. We will have to elaborate this 5QI once again, but just remember it is just a number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just a number. Whenever a QoS flow is associated with this number, it kind of gives a hint about what kind of a quality of service flow we are creating, for what kind of data we are creating this QoS flow. Or indirectly, it gives also a hint about what kind of services the application requires, what kind of quality of service implementation the application requires, the one that is using this 5QI or the one that is using this QoS flow. Okay, next. Third, allocation retention priority. This is an admission control mechanism where a QoS flow is getting admitted into the system. If network comes and requests the G-Node B to create a QoS flow, if there are enough amount of resources available with G-Node B, it might accept it without worrying about this ERP value. But if there is network congestion going on, already a lot of quality of service flows are going on, you don't want to admit this new one. So then obviously G-Node B would be using these ERP values as its mechanism to uh, you know, prevent the establishment of this new quality of service flow that is triggered. But for that, there are three important parameters: priority, preemption capability, preemption vulnerability. Priority is a value ranging from 1 to 15, 1 being the highest, 15 being the lowest in terms of priority. So every time a QoS flow is getting established, it is associated with any one of the numbers from ranging from 1 to 15. 1 to 8 is for the home network subscribers. 9 to 15 is for the roaming network subscribers who are roaming in by being present in our network. So obviously, home network must give more priority to home network users. So they have decided to use the highest priority for the home network subscribers, and the roaming guys will get 9 to 15. So obviously, In a situation where radio resources available, uh, very less radio resources are available, our situation is pretty bad. If one home network subscriber and one roaming network subscriber fight for the quality of service flow establishment, who will be given the priority is definitely the higher prioritized guy, who is nothing but home network subscriber. Because the home network subscriber priority number is 1 to 8, which is higher than 9 to 15. Okay. Uh, every quality of service flow can also have preemption capability enabled or disabled, preemption vulnerability also enabled or disabled. First of all, what is this word preemption means? Preemption is like, we can say, uh, in a simpler English language, it is like overruling on something that is already present, or maybe we can say that prioritized in another simple thing. First of all, what is the meaning of preemption capability? Because your priority is higher than the other guy that is coming up. Even though you are vulnerable to preemption, but in this particular situation, you won't be vulnerable. You will not be. But if there was flow which is coming up with priority value 3, and your vulnerability is enabled, then definitely in case when the resources are not available, this QoS flow definitely can preempt you, can throw you out of the system, and it can occupy your resources. So every time a quality of service flow is getting created, these three parameters would be set. What is the priority value for that quality of service flow? Is this QoS flow that is coming up have the capability to preempt others? Or is it also like eligible for or vulnerable when others try to preempt this QoS flow? So these three parameters need to be set. This ERP won't have much of an impact when there are enough amount of resources available for every QoS flow in the Gnode B. But if for any reason, if Gnode B is facing the trouble, radio trouble, resource related trouble, etc., you don't have enough resources available for the new quality of service flow that is coming up. Now Zero B kind of starts doing the comparison. Hey, is this QoS flow that is coming up, what is its priority? It is an optional parameter applicable for non-GBR quality of service flows, non-guaranteed bitrate quality of service flows. Simple meaning of this is whatever the quality of service that is working in downlink or working for downlink traffic, mobile will have to apply the same quality of service for uplink. That is what is called as reflective. For example, a mirror is a reflection. So network would set the downlink quality of service properties and ask the mobile equipment that, hey, you have to implement the same quality of service in uplink as well. So you will have to derive these quality of service properties, whatever they are derived from downlink traffic. After receiving the downlink traffic, from that you will be able to detect them and implement that mechanism, reflective quality of service implementation. But this reflective quality of service enabling happens on user plane. What is the meaning of it? We will understand in after a few minutes. We'll see that. Okay. So this is the only parameter that is present for non-GBR. So reflective quality of service, that means whatever the downlink quality of service you are getting, if you replicate the same thing in uplink, that is what we call as reflective. But this mechanism of enabling such reflective quality of service is applicable only for non-guaranteed bitrate flows, not applicable for guaranteed bitrate ones, only applicable for non-guaranteed bitrate flow. What if we require this for uplink, for guaranteed bitrate also? That time network itself will have to configure both uplink and as well as downlink. You won't be communicating this information to the mobile equipment in user plane in case of guaranteed bitrate services. It need to be exclusively configured. But only in this case, this quality of service flow enabling happens with the help of the user plane. How? We'll find out. Next. Now the properties we are studying are the ones that are only applicable for GBRs. At least the left ones are applicable for only GBR. Guaranteed flow bitrate. That is a bitrate that is kind of getting guaranteed for any quality of service flow over a averaging time window. What is this averaging time window? Some amount of time, typically like 1 second, 2 seconds, etc. So within 2 seconds time, how much data rate you are guaranteeing for that quality of service flow? If it is, for example, 2 seconds, every 2 seconds, the same data rate need to be repeated. Same guaranteed bit rate must be provided every averaging time window. That is guaranteed. What is maximum? Maximum bitrate that is applicable for the quality of service flow. Doesn't mean that you get the maximum flow bitrate. You may or you may not. For example, your guaranteed flow bitrate can be 2 Mbps for a quality of service flow, and maximum flow bitrate can be 5 Mbps. That means network is giving you 2 Mbps guarantee, but there is also a possibility that you can be taken all the way up to 5 Mbps if the situations go good. For example, if there are no other subscribers fighting for the resources, only you are existing, maybe night 2 o'clock or whatever, then your data rate could be very high, up to the whatever the value that this maximum flow bit rate is uh, possible to take you up to till that number. Now, let us suppose there are two quality of service flows. For one quality of service flow, guaranteed is 2 Mbps, maximum is 5 Mbps. Another quality of service flow, guaranteed is 3 Mbps, and maximum is 5 Mbps for another QoS flow. Now, whatever the gap is there, 2 to 5, 3 MB, 3 to 5, 2 MB, this is excessive. How this will be provided? This 3 MB or 2 MB, the extra one, that will be dependent on something called as the priority of individual quality of service flows. For example, if this QoS flows priority is higher than this QoS flows priority, first we will schedule this 2 MB data. Then we'll give the priority to this 3 MB data if still resources are available. For example, if the resources are available only for 5 Mbps, then there is no extra thing possible, because this guy promised these 2, this guy promised these 3, Together itself, we are reaching up to the maximum limitation on the network, which is 5. So even though the promised maximum bitrate that are promised are 5 up to 10, so that is kind of not a non-achievable situation right now. You can get it. What if the subscriber is either downloading more than the maximum flow bitrate or uploading the more than maximum flow bitrate? There is something called as a traffic policing that will take place in the UPF. UPF will be for each QoS flow, because UPFs know the QoS flow ID. So UPF can find out for which QoS flow it is already crossing the maximum flow bitrate. Once it is crossed, UPF can drop those excessive packets that are crossing the maximum flow bitrate. So you are allowed to transmit only up to maximum flow bitrate, not more than that. Guaranteed is always provided, but maximum you can go up to MFBR. But once you cross that, network will stop dropping the packets. Says not needed. So that's the kind of control network will have on it. Okay. Now these two parameters, GFBR and MFBR, are applicable per quality of service flow. So for which quality of service flow, what is the guaranteed bitrate, what is the maximum bitrate? But now we have a concept called as aggregate bitrates. This is applicable for non-GBR flows. Aggregate is possible to be calculated at two levels: session level at UE level. Session is a PDU session which mobile equipment can establish with um, one data network. That is the session. So for every session, what is the aggregate? Aggregate means the summation of all the maximum bit rates. Like what is the total maximum bitrate that a subscriber can use, a UE can use for its PDU session. So all the quality of service flows that belongs to non-GBR type, together, they should not cross this session aggregate maximum bitrate. For example, if there are three non-GBR things are there, if first one maximum bitrate is being used is 5, second one is 3, third one is 2, so total it is 10. So this 10 Mbps must have been the session aggregate, and you should not cross it. If you wanted to establish a fourth quality of service flow, one of these guys need to be like reduced. They're automatically the traffic volume will be reduced. Then nothing is promised, because in non-GBR case, network says that it is a best effort situation. Whatever I can provide you, I provide you. Just now you are getting 5, 3, and 2 doesn't mean that you will always get 5, 3, and 2. That won't be the case. You are getting 5, 3, 2 because network has the capability for 10, and your session aggregate maximum bitrate according to your subscription is 10. So it is serving. Maybe there are no other requirements, guaranteed bitrate quality of service flows are not there, and you are doing the operation maybe night 2 o'clock, you are watching or downloading the Netflix videos or Prime videos or whatever. So network can provide you higher uh, bit rates for your non-GBR services. But in any case, it should not cross your subscribed rate. So that is considered as the session aggregate maximum bit rate, applicable per PDU session. Now, mobile can have many PDU sessions. If you combine them, all the maximum bitrate for each session, I mean, if you put them together, that forms the UE aggregate maximum bitrate. So that is applicable across all the non-GBR quality of service flows, across all the data network connections, across all the PDU sessions that the mobile is having. Again, this UE aggregate maximum bitrate also is applicable only for non-GBR quality of service flows, not applicable for quality of service flow. Or sorry, not applicable for GBR flow. It is only applicable for non-GBR flows. Okay, one point here. Simple way of discrimination is that for guaranteed bitrate flows, you have individual characteristics. Individually, you can identify what is its that particular QoS flow's guaranteed rate, maximum rate. When it comes to non-GBR flows, you have only aggregates, either at the session level aggregate towards one data network, or the aggregate for the UE level aggregate, the total, all the things together. So individual capacities are not identified for non-GBR quality of service flow, only aggregate. So you can have any number of non-GBR flows, all of them will have to adjust within these aggregate limitations. But whereas for GBR flows, for each GBR flow, there is a separate, value associated when it comes to these bit rates. So there is one separate guaranteed bitrate value, maximum bitrate value. Is this clear? Okay. Now, one more parameter that is applicable only for GBR flow, notification controlled. No, our notification control mechanism. What is this? When the SMF is asking the Gnode B to create a GBR flow, at that time network can say to the NGRAN node, nothing but your Gnode B. It can say that, hey, I'm asking you to create a GBR flow. Now you have to estimate and tell me whether you will be able to provide the data rate that I'm going to promise for this particular flow, whatever the guaranteed bit rate that we have decided to use. You have to report me about it. So Gnode B kind of considers the present situation, what's going on, how many quality of service flows are going on for how many subscribers. And it also have to consider this incoming quality of service flow request is containing what ERP values. Can it preempt the others or not? If it cannot preempt others, now can we accommodate this particular GBR flow that is coming up with its promised data rate, guaranteed bit rate? So Gnode B kind of have to do future estimations based on the present traffic situation and the request that is coming in. It will have to do the future estimate. On the basis of that future estimate, if requested, it will have to go and talk to the SMF. For example, if NGRAN identified that this particular guaranteed bitrate cannot be provided, so then it will have to go and talk to the go and talk to your SMF and explain that, hey, you're asking me to create a quality of service flow with so and so data rate, but I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to do it right now. Some bad situation is going on my side, and at the same time the quality of service flow that you have sent is having very low ARP values. I cannot even preempt the other quality of service flows that are ongoing because they have higher values, they are higher ARP values. So I cannot preempt others. I cannot accommodate you without preempting others. So they are not stopping their service, and you don't have higher priority. So I can't give this guarantee. So you can related to the quality of service control. Audio connection has been lost for a few seconds. Anyway, I did not speak anything in the duration. I hope it is back now. You guys are able to hear me, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now there are two types of notification control. When the network is asking the GNodeB to create a GBR flow, notification control without alternative quality of service profile. When this is done, simply mobile, whether it can either guarantee the data rate that is requested, or when it cannot guarantee the data rate that is requested, it will simply send a notification to the there seems to be something going on the server side, I guess. No issue on the network or any other problem, but sometimes, rarely this will happen. Anyway, I hope we got back. Okay, let us continue. Sorry for that. I don't know why it's occurring, but taking place. Yeah. So NGRAM node will simply will report it to the SMF that whether it can guarantee or not guarantee. If you are reporting that you are not guaranteeing, SMF and PCF will have to coordinate with each other, speak to each other. They will have to come up with an alternative quality of service profile, or they have to come up with, maybe lesser data rate GBR. They will come and say that, hey, if you cannot provide 5 Mbps guaranteed bit rate for the quality of service profile that I have requested to create, or QoS uh, thing that I have asked you to create, can you at least do for 3 Mbps? So they will come up with an alternative QoS flow property. This is one method. The second method is, at the time when the uh, GBR4 is getting established, network will ask the NGRAM node that, hey, I'm giving you alternative quality of service profile directly along with the notification control. Now, if you think you cannot provide the data rate that I'm requesting, you please choose one of the things from these alternative quality of service profile and implement it. Implement that particular data rate. If you think you cannot provide it. So if any one of the guaranteed bit rates are okay for the NGRAM node, it will implement that. If it is a match, it will send a notification to the SMF reporting that, hey, I have selected so and so alternative profile ID. So I have definitely not using the GBR that you have requested, I cannot do it, but I'm going for an alternative profile. But I'm reporting you. What I'm taking up, I'm reporting you. But when there is no match, none of the quality of service um, uh, GBRs are possible to be implemented on your side. Even alternatives are a failure. The original request was bad. Alternative things also are very high. So in that case, NGR node would simply send a notification to the SMF saying that, hey, neither your original proposal or nor the alternative quality of service profiles you said, none of them are suitable for me to implement. Right now, I'm facing really, really big trouble related to radio resources and the quality of service implementation. So you have to forgive me. It sends a notification. Again, now SMF will have to come up with more alternative quality of service profiles or even reduce the data rate further to send a proposal. So this kind of a negotiation can keep getting happening between the engineer node and the network until a possible implementation is finalized by the engineer node. Obviously, everything is in the hands of the engineer node, which is nothing but the G node B. Because you can't get the radio resources, you can't get anything. You can't get that quality of service that is being requested. Okay. The last parameter in the um, GBR flows, maximum packet loss rate. This kind of indicates how many packets are kind of allowed to be lost, or even if they are lost, we tolerate it. The QoS flow tolerates it. But this parameter is applicable only for GBR quality of service flows, and that too for GBR flows that are applicable for NGR nodes. So this applicable value that is suggested is applicable for both directions, uplink and as downlink. Okay, so these are the parameters that are present in non-GBR flows and GBR flows. But in non-GBR, one thing is optional, reflective quality of service implementation. In GBR, notification control and maximum packet loss rate are optional because it may not be live voice traffic to choose this maximum packet loss rate. If it is not live voice traffic for which we are creating the GBR flow, then this parameter need not be present. All right. Um, Now, it is the expansion that we have to do for this 5QI, 5G quality of service identifier, or 5QI. This 5QI, as I told you, is a set of quality of service properties. And each set of quality of service properties got a number associated with it. And what properties are those? These are the 6 listed properties that are applicable for this 5QI. And by taking various combinations of these 6 characteristics, they have formulated different 5QI numbers. And every time a quality of service flow is coming up, we kind of indicate a proper 5QI value that is near to that particular quality of service requirements. So what are these 6 properties? What details would be there in it? First, we'll look into it. So that's the first part. 5G quality of service identifier, 5QI. How many properties it possesses? 6. Those are listed here. First one, resource type. Whether it is guaranteed bitrate resource that we are talking about, or delay critical guaranteed bitrate, in shortcut we call it as DCGBR, so which is an like a higher version of GBR. Between these two things, guaranteed bitrate and delay critical guaranteed bitrate, definitely delay critical guaranteed bitrate would have more priority over guaranteed bitrate. The idea of delay critical is for emergency services, mostly they would be used delay critical. So the guaranteeing plus delay also should not be there. Guaranteeing the bitrate and you cannot have any excessive delay. Third category is non-guaranteed bitrate. So in this, one extra thing that we have introduced in this resource type is GBR is kind of having an additional component called as delay critical GBR. So 5QI values are segregated based on one of these 3 properties. GBR or delay critical GBR or non-guaranteed NGBR. So when you are setting a quality of service flow, for every quality of service flow, you have to identify a 5QI. But which 5QI values you have to take? If the quality of service flow that you are bringing up is a guaranteed bitrate quality of service flow, then you have to take the 5QI values that are under this guaranteed bitrate resource type. Only those 5QI values you have to pick one from. Other things you are not allowed to pick. It should be based on the kind of quality of service flow that you're bringing up. It's dependent on that. Next, default priority level. It's a priority value that is going to be making an important decision-making factor while scheduling the resources, especially in the congestion scenarios. Remember, this priority value we are studying here and the priority value that we have already studied in ERP, both are different. ERP priority only comes into the play only during admission control, only when you are admitting that quality of service flow. Once you have admitted that quality of service flow, that priority value is no more valid. The ERP one I am talking about, the ERP specific priority value is no more valid. It is not going to be useful for anything. On the other hand, this priority value is not applicable during admission control, but this priority level that is associated with a 5QI kind of required to decide which data to be scheduled first. For example, if you have to do any logical channel prioritization at MAC level, etc., for all those things, this priority value matters. This priority value is playing the important decision making factor role. The lower the value, the higher the priority. But what are the different values possible for what different services we'll identify, we'll see that. But that is the default priority level. Next, packet delay budget, PDB. For the packets that are going through the quality of service flow associated with this 5QI, how much delay budget they have. This delay budget will be dependent on application types. Typically, it would be same in both uplink and downlink. The delay budget is estimated as a time between the UE and the UPF. How much time it is taking to travel from the mobile equipment all the way up to UPF or UPF to UE in downlink direction. For the entire processing and forwarding all together, how much time it takes the packet consumes while traveling through the path UPF to G node B to the mobile, and including the processing time of every protocol layer, the SDAP, PDCP, RLC, MAC, physical layer in the radio protocol stack, or going on the tunnel, whatever the extra time the tunnel takes, everything together, what is the total time a packet is allowed to take or a packet is allowed to be delayed? That's what is this packet delay budget. And they have identified some particular values for different application types depending on the 5QA values. They've standardized it. But there are some additional rules here. GBR, if the GBR resource is not exceeded by GFBR, for example, your guaranteed bitrate was 2 Mbps, and if you are not crossing 2 Mbps, then 98% of the packets should not be delayed. Only there is a leverage for 2% of the packets that can be delayed by the network. Delayed by a small amount of time, maybe little crossing this packet delay budget, allowed to be crossing the packet delay budget. That too for only for 2% of the packets are allowed to cross that PDB limit. So whatever the guaranteed bitrate data rate is there, that must be almost served within the PDB limit. That's the point here. For delay critical GBR, if data burst, here in delay critical GBR, data will be sent in bursts. What is the meaning of a burst? A sudden generation of the data. That is what we typically call as a burst. If the data burst is not exceeding a separate factor called as MDBV, which we'll introduce later, within the packet delay budget time, then, and GFBR is not exceeded, or, and if the packet is delayed, like more than whatever the PDB value that is set, in this, when these conditions are met, but still there is a little delay, you have to consider that packet as a lost. You that much amount of importance we give. Not even 1% of the packet should be delayed here, like 0% in this case. But one additional rule is GFBR should not be exceeded. None of the packets should be delayed. But one more additional rule that is coming up is something called as MDBV, maximum data burst volume. It is called as. It should not exceed that value. So for delay critical GBR services, there is a MDBV value that is already identified for different types of delay critical GBR services. So as long as you are within the limitations of MDBV and GFBR that is promised, there should not be any delay at all for delay critical GBR services. No delay is acceptable. If any packet is delayed, it will be considered as lost. That means that we give that much importance. That's the point. Okay. Last characteristic, NGBR. 98% of the packets should not experience a delay exceeding the PDB. So it should be within the limitations, 98% of the packets. So this 98% rule is present in the GBR as well as in non-GBR. But there is no guaranteed bitrate here associated. But whatever the packets that are generated working within the limitations of your aggregate rates, those packets should not have more than 2% delay. exceeding the PDB value. Okay. So that's one parameter that is set. Packet error rate, maximum allowed rate of PDU loss. How many PDUs are allowed to be lost? Are tolerable. Like even if they are lost, we are okay with it. Default maximum data burst volume, MDBV, which is applicable as we have seen for the DCGBR cases, not applicable for GBR and NGBR cases. The largest amount of data that is required to be served in an averaging window in one particular time unit that is already identified, like 1 second or 2 seconds or whatever it is, what is the largest amount of data that you have to serve? So that is what we call as a data burst volume that is permitted. Applicable only for delay critical GBR cases, not applicable in other scenarios. Default averaging window. To calculate the guaranteed bitrate or maximum flow bitrate, whatever the time unit you take, the T, the time unit you take to calculate the bitrates, the time unit is what we call as the default averaging window. GFBR and MFBR calculation window value or time value, basically. So they identified that every application that is coming up on a mobile phone, for that application traffic, these 6 properties need to be defined. They have decided it. So they said that the application traffic need to be classified as guaranteed or non-guaranteed or delay critical guaranteed, the application traffic. Also, what is its priority among other applications traffic? When multiple applications are generating belongs to different quality of service flow. What is your priority? And how much delay there can be there for the data that is getting generated for this application? How many packets are allowed to be lost in per second? How many packets? Or maybe like every 1,000 packets once you are allowed to lose one, whatever, some number. So even then application should be working smoothly, even if you are losing it. But again, as I told you, this losing is only allowed for voice services, not every case. But in delay critical scenarios, suddenly you are allowed to send bursty of traffic. Like for example, whenever you want to suddenly send the data, you are allowed to send it. But how much amount of that sudden data burst that you have generated can be sent in an average window time, in some limited time unit? So that's already identified. So for delay critical applications, they have already identified by analyzing worldwide what are the different delay critical application possibilities, and they kind of calculated these things in the real environments, and they found different possible values that are fitting into your categorizations. And what is the default averaging window time they have to take while calculating the guaranteed bitrate or maximum bitrate values? So what did they do? Worldwide, they have analyzed thousands of applications, and they have considered like each application, what should be the perfect properties for each application data. They kind of considered that, and they have kind of identified different combinations required for different applications, different combination of values that are required for different applications. And each combination is what we call as a FIQI. Each combination of these values is what we call as FIQI. For example, if you have a Facebook generating the data, what should be the FIQI value that is associated with the quality QoS flow that is linked to Facebook? Can anyone tell me? How do you decide that? If we are setting up a quality of service flow for Facebook, what should be the 5QI value for that quality of service flow? How do you decide it? That's my question. Anyone participating? At least two participations. Guys, come on. We have to discuss this so that you learn. At least two of you guys try to attempt, please. I got one answer, luckily. It depends on the service offered by Facebook. Like charting, it will be low priority. Exactly. That's a good answer. Rohan. It depends on what kind of traffic the Facebook is generating. Facebook can have several quality of service flows operating at the same time. For example, Facebook, you can do the chatting, you can do file uploading and downloading, like photos and uploading or photos downloading, or you can have a video call on Facebook, or you can start a live broadcast on Facebook. For each one of these services, their respective properties, these six properties, would be different. So, depending on what exactly is Facebook going to do right now, depending on that, the current corresponding quality of service flow need to be created with the perfect 5QA value. Because one application can generate different types of data. So, ultimate point that I want you to realize is these properties are going to be identified on the basis of type of data. If the type of data changes, these properties must be changed as well. Their values must be changed. The behavior of the network and towards the particular mobile must be changed. So what they did, they have done the worldwide analysis of all the existing applications, application types. They come up with some standard values for these six fields. And for every combination values that they require for a different application, they allocated one 5QI value. And now, because they already standardized these 5QI values, what now we have to do is when you install any application on your mobile phone and the application started generating any kind of traffic, traffic is always ones and zeros, it's bits. But what those bits require, what kind of data is present in that bits? Is it containing the live voice data, or is it containing the video files that you are uploading, or it is live video? What is it? In those bits, lot of differentiations are there. So obviously all that play a role. So now what are those standardized values of 5QI that we have? So these are the standardized 5QI values that are applicable for GBR bearers or GBR QoS flows. So the 5QI values 1, 2, 3, 4, 65, 66, 67, 75, 71, 72, 73, 74, 76. So these many 5QI values are already pre-identified. Now, simple point is you take a look at the right hand side, the top, complete right hand side, example services are listed here. For example, if your application is going to generate voice traffic, application could be anything. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Facebook, it could be something else. It doesn't matter. But if it is a voice service, it will be classified as conversational voice. And if any quality of service flow that is getting created for it, it should be a GBR quality of service flow, and it should have the 5QI value associated as 1. The moment the application is associated with this 5QI value, immediately the meaning is you get all these properties from the network. So network kind of promising you all these. Because you are associated with that 5QI value by segregating your data type as conversational voice, now the telecom network, 5G NR telecom network is promising you all these 6 properties. It is telling you that, hey, whatever data rate you choose for your voice traffic, if I agree that data rate, once the moment we agree, from that moment, we will provide you guaranteed bit rate. If you request for example, 64 kbps voice, which is HD voice, if you have requested for it, and if enough resources are available in the network, and if I have decided to accept that, from the moment I have accepted it, I will make sure that I will provide you that data rate. Data rate could be anything. Data rate could be dependent on conversational voice subcategories. You can choose HD voice, you can choose ultra HD voice, like which can send a large amount of data, but the most clean without any additional noise, etc., etc. Or it could be very low rate voice, very pathetic, compressed voice, which is like kind of low quality. So depending on what kind of voice you are generating, the data rate is going to vary. But whatever the data rate that you have decided to use it for your application service, once you request it from the network, automatically from that moment onwards, once network accepted your QoS flow, from that moment onwards, whatever they are agreed upon, whatever the guaranteed bitrate they are agreed upon, definitely network will work towards providing you that guaranteed bitrate without anything missing, without going back on its word. That's the idea. Okay, now, what are the different other properties that are present here? Default priority level, 20. Packet delay budget, 100 milliseconds. The amount of time it should take from mobile to UPF or UPF to mobile across all the full protocol stack plus radio signal plus wired transmission between Gnode V to UPF, all of it together should not cross 100 milliseconds. So within that 100 milliseconds, your voice data should travel from one side to the other side. Your VoIP packet should travel from one side to the other side. That is the limitation. So your network will have to make sure to provide you that uh, service within the PDB. And we have learned all those conditions already. 98% of the packet should not cross the PDB in GBR cases. That means if you have generated 100 voice frames, 100 voice packets, right now I am speaking, my computer may take my voice in, for example, every 20 milliseconds once, it can convert it into a voice packet, VoIP packet. So if my computer generated 100 voice packets, one after the other, out of it, 98 packets should not cross this 100 milliseconds delay that is promising you by the network. They should reach from mobile to UPF or UPF to mobile within that 100 milliseconds limitation. How many of them? 98 of them. Only for two of the VoIP packets, you are giving some amount of leverage. And packet error rate is 10 to the power of minus 2, which is nothing but 1 by 10. 1 by 10 to the power of 2. 10 to the power of 2 is 100, which makes it 1 by 100. That means 1 out of 100 packets is allowed to be missing, which is kind of considered as very heavy error rate. That means if I generate 100 voice packets, network is promising that out of them it will try to transmit 99 of them without missing. Only one voice packet the network may miss, or that is within the within the limitation of allowed things. If you cross that packet error rate, you kind of consider the service as a bad service. Okay, but this is very high packet error rate, 1 in 100. Maximum data burst volume is not applicable for GBR cases. It is only guaranteed bit rate, whatever the requested guaranteed bit rate. But there is no standard data burst volume that is identified by guaranteed bit rate, because different applications worldwide will use different guaranteed bit rates for different types of guaranteed bit rate services. They won't be same. So that's why they did not identify. So it is not applicable for GBR cases. What is the default averaging window? 2000 milliseconds in all these cases. That means whatever the data rate that is promised, that data rate promise, you have to achieve it in every 2000 milliseconds. You have to send that much amount of traffic. For example, if your guaranteed bitrate is 64 kbps, 2000 milliseconds is equal to 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds you need to send minimum 128 kb of data, because 64 kb per second is equal to 1000 milliseconds. But here our default averaging window is 2 seconds or 2000 milliseconds. So it will do the estimation and find out every 2 seconds whether you are dispatching 128 kb of traffic or not. So network is kind of promising you that, hey, every 2 seconds once I would send this much amount of traffic. That is the promise. That means it need not be continuously same quality of service. Little here and there can be there, is allowed. But overall, every 2 seconds, you must meet your promised bitrate. If you send 128 kb data in 2 seconds, indirectly equal to you are sending 64 kb per second. So which becomes 64 kilobits per second. Now, if you take a look at this and summarize these things, various kinds of applications are there. Now, first I will introduce one by one applications and their story behind it. Conversational video or live streaming, like you are making a WhatsApp video call. Then the priority level is 20, delay budget is 150 milliseconds instead of 100. So network is allowed to with a little extra time in case of video, not in case of audio, only in case of video. Packet loss rate is reduced 1 by 1000 in this case. One in 1000 packets you are allowed to lose. Again, averaging window is 2000 milliseconds. But whatever the promised data rate, according to it, the packets will be carried. The guaranteed bit rate could be, for example, like 240 kbps, very like maybe a low rate video. But every second 240 kb data, 2 seconds, it is equal to 580, sorry, 480 kb you have to dispatch in 2 seconds. If that is the guaranteed bit rate, if it is accepted at the starting. But for traveling the packet from mobile all the way up to UPF, you have 150 milliseconds time. So slightly live video is delayed when you compare with live voice. When you are having a live video call, along with your video, audio also would be there. For video, separate QoS flow might be created. For audio, separate QoS flow would be created. But when video is getting delayed, on the basis of the delay occurring for video, they would try to implement the same amount of delay for audio as well, so that your uh, sync up will work. Video audio sync up would work. Otherwise, not required. If video, even though packet delay budget is set to 150, if you are achieving 100 milliseconds delay only in case of video, then you don't need to delay voice. You will have perfect synchronization. But if there is a fight among the resources at the same time, for example, Which one would be given importance is definitely video, voice, because its priority level is higher than the video priority level. Remember, the lower the number, the higher the priority. Real-time gaming, electricity distribution, medium voltage electricity distribution, etc. Those kind of services would be falling into 30, and packet delay budget is very low, 50 milliseconds only. For different types of applications, they, depending on their properties, the packet delay budget would be set. For example, real-time gaming. You are playing some real game, like for example, PUBG. Like in PUBG, normally players will shoot each other. If your mobile sent signal is delayed even a little, basically the player would get killed. Maybe you saw your enemy saw you, but your enemy is using a good internet connection. You are on a radio network and which is kind of delaying your packets. Even though you press the trigger first, but the bullet came out of your enemy's rifle because that information reached the server first rather than your information. So obviously, in real-time gaming, more importance is for delay. So delay should be less, but priority is 30. It is lower than voice. So when fighting for the resources at the same time, 20 and 30, you give the priority for voice traffic instead of sending the real uh, the gaming information or gaming data. Non-conversational video, buffered streaming like YouTube, 50, and huge delay budget, 300 milliseconds. But packet loss is further reduced, 1 by 10 to the power of 6. Every one packet out of every 1 million packets or 10 lakh packets. So 10 power 6 is 1 million. Some V2X messages, live uplink streaming. This is kind of downlink streaming. This is uplink streaming. When you are sending the uplink, the value is 56, lower priority. And there are different 71, 72, 73, 74, 76. All of them are having the same priority level, but their delay budgets are different. One have got 150, the others have got 300, 500, with different delay budgets and different packet error rates. So depending on what kind of setting you do, one of it would be chosen for live uplink streaming, and corresponding 5QI value would be set, and you get those properties promised from the network. Network would be providing you that service according to the settings. But these are all standard values. Remember, every application traffic would be classified into one of these example services, depending on what that application is doing. Based on where your application data fits, obviously network will try to allocate you the corresponding 5QI value. For example, if it falls under this category, we are watching a YouTube video, then the 5QI value that you get is 4. May not be YouTube may not be live. I'm talking about YouTube live streaming in here. May not be the YouTube video as it is. Live buffered streaming, where stream is getting buffered. So you won't be losing anything at all. Every frame will be played to you. Next 5QI values, non-GBR values, non-guaranteed bitrate ones. So you have obviously priority values starting from the range 10 to 19. 10, the lowest that you see here. In the previous box, we see 7 as the lowest. That is applicable for something called as mission critical user plane push to talk. voice. Mission critical means uh, typically emergency services. So when emergency services case, the highest priority you get 7. Even this mission critical video user plane also is 15 for sending the video, like doctor, for example. You are talking to a doctor, which is kind of identified as mission critical video. They have the lowest priorities among them. But even higher priority components we have 10, 5, etc. 10 is applicable for IMS signaling, IP multimedia subsystem signaling to establish voice calls, etc. by using IMS packet data network. To send those signaling messages, you would be using a priority value 10, which is lower than your voice data and everything. But if it is a video or TCP based services like emails, chat, etc., etc., they will be considered to be falling under non-GBR category. The value is 60, typically very, 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 very low priority value. And if we have 70, some interactive gaming and live video streaming where the frames are allowed to be missing, etc. And there is 8090 also available. Again, in this we have segregations. So the buffered streaming and the live streaming, there is non-GBR based ones are there, GBR based ones are there. So it depends on what application chooses. For example, you go to YouTube. If you put YouTube to auto mode, that will be considered as non-GBR, non-guaranteed bitrate. When you put in auto mode, depending on the network conditions, your pixel rate will be changing. So network will automatically would be changing from 240 pixels to 360 pixels, maybe to 720 pixels or 1080 pixels when they have resources are available. But when resources are not available, it might be dropping your pixel rate 1080 to 720, and from there it will be dropping down to maybe 360 and so on. So that falls under non-GBR category when you put it to auto. But instead, if you have gone to your YouTube and chose advanced setting, and you specifically set one particular value, you said that I want 1080 pixels only. You set that particular value, you are demanding the network to provide you that. So that time, it may fall under, it may fall under the GBR category in that case. But whenever you are choosing GBR, for that you need to have the corresponding subscription also to work with that particular rate. Within the subscription limits, it will provide you that GBR service. But if you did not subscribe for that, then definitely it will only do, um, non-GBR, where it is going to be considered as buffer streaming, where it'll download something and buffer it and play it for you. After that, it will start rotating. It will start buffering once again, and it will play one more time. It's kind of that. So there are several types of applications again, and there are different possibilities that you can choose from depending on your application type. Next, the last one is delay critical. Only in delay critical we have this default maximum data bus volume present, where there is, for example, 255 bytes of data is set for this delay critical GBR 5QA value 82, with the priority level being 19, just one step above your voice. Is called as discrete automation, or discrete automation plus V2X messages. Most of these things are vehicle to everything messages, intelligent transport systems which will try to avoid the accidents and so on. Or electricity with high voltage distribution electricity systems will use these delay critical GBR things, where the delay is very, very low. Actually, the packet delay budget is very low. So the message would be sent out fast. For example, a VTH message from one car to the other car will have to go out in 5 milliseconds, end to end. We should not cross more than 5 milliseconds because any more delay will cause the accident. We don't won't prevent the accident. So here the delay plays a role. And within that 5 milliseconds, again, every 2 milliseconds once, you must be sending 255 bytes at least. If any application chooses 85 as its 5QI value. So if you are sending every two seconds, you are sending 255 bytes. And um, your data rate, you can easily compute. So your data rate will be exactly half, which is equal to like 128 bytes, approximately 127, 128 bytes, the middle point. This is per second. That's it. That is your data rate. So mostly these delay critical GBRs will have some data rates already associated with them. They are like standard data rates that are applicable. Depending on what kind of delay critical application you are using and what kind of a data rate it require or what kind of data burst volume it generates, depending on it, you choose the corresponding 5QI value while bringing up the corresponding QoS flow when you're bringing up quality of service flow for that. You choose it. So here, you don't have availability to send as much data as you want, like infinite amount of data or whatever that you can choose. You can't do that. So within this limitation, you have to play. Your applications must work within this size limitations that are listed here. So maximum size that is present is 1354 bytes for 5QI values 83, 84, and 86. But for 82 and 85, it is 255 bytes. Averaging window is the same. The difference between delay critical GBR and GBR services is in GBR, guaranteed bitrate is not fixed. Application will choose the guaranteed bitrate on the go, on the live situation, depending on what you need at that particular point in time. But in case of delay critical GBR, the moment you choose this mechanism, of course, it will have higher priority, low packet delay budget, try to dispatch the traffic very fast. Within even 5 milliseconds also, it can dispatch the traffic from one end to the other end. But these things will have limited data rates. You can send the infinite amount of data over here. Now, to summarize all the points that we have learned so far, every time a QoS profile is getting sent for a quality of service flow from SMF to Gnode B or NGRAM node, depending on whether it is a non-GBR flow or a GBR flow, you will get the corresponding properties. In case of non-GBR, you get these four properties. One of them is optional, maybe there, may not be there, but you get at least three properties. In case of a GBR flow that is getting set up, you get these five properties mandatorily, these two properties optionally, notification control and maximum packet loss rate. But the most important point is every flow that is getting created is associated with something called as a 5QI, 5G quality of service class identifier. That is the kind of identifies what kind of traffic that is going to be sent by this particular QoS flow, or what kind of traffic the application is generating and sending it with the help of this QoS flow. That is what we identify with that 5QI. So the 5QI is a combination of what is its default priority level. The default priority level is different for different services, as I have showed you in the tables. For voice, it is like 20, 40, video, it is 40, etc., etc. Those are the default priority values. The lowest the priority value, the more possibility for you to be scheduled immediately when you are fighting with others. Packet delay budget, packet error rate, default averaging window, default maximum data burst volume that is applicable only for the GBRs which are of type DC GBRs. So those are the quality of service for profile that is sent from the network. So once this quality of service profile arrives in, what does the GNodeB do? Once it gets this QoS profile from here, first it will see whether the notification part is enabled or not. Notification control is enabled or not. If enabled, first thing GNodeB is that it will try to do the estimations. Hey, this bugger is requesting for 20 MB traffic here, and with the ERP value being 5, now I have to look whether I can provide this 20 Mbps traffic for this QoS flow that is being requested right now. Can I do it in the future consistently? Can I promise this thing to SMF, or I can't promise? First, it will have to make a decision about it. Once it made a decision, if it decided to provide it anyhow, it will go back and send a notification to SMF that yes, I provide it. Once you say you provide, you are going to provide it, QoS GNodeB start communicating with the mobile by using RRC protocol and start creating the needed things. Like required radio bearer. That radio bearer must be associated with what quality of service, what priority, etc. The priority values are actually coming in this QoS profile. The same details would be converted into RRC information and provided to the mobile. This is the quality of service we are going to follow from now onwards. It kind of conveys the details by using RRC procedures. So is this clear? Is this? So a PDU session can have many quality of service flows. Whenever a quality of service flow is coming up, there will be only one N3 tunnel, but there can be a lot of DRBs, but they are kind of each DRB that is part of a different quality of service flow might be associated with a different data rate, because each quality of service flow can have a different data rate, which is allowed. PDUS UPP protocol will have to kind of add this quality of service flow IDs and send it across the path. Now it is the time for us to look into what details would be present in this PDUS UPP, how this single N3 tunnel works, which can send separate quality of service flows, and how the information would get shifted from PDUS UPP to SDAP, and how what is the job SDAP does and sends it. So we are going to study these three protocols one by one. First, we study the PDUS UPP protocol, then we study the GTPU N3 tunnel protocol, Then we see SDAP protocol. We look at these three protocols one by one. So with that, this quality of service implementation process will be fully complete. So far what we have learned is how GNodeB receives the quality of service profile from SMF, with the help of which how it will create these DRBs with the help of the requested quality of service properties like data rate and packet delay budget and so on and so forth. By considering all of them, it will kind of create the needed radio resources or radio bearers for the subscribers. All right. I'm going to share that just a minute. Okay. So what are we going to study next? Uh, so when this data is traveling in the user plane, when the IP packets that belongs to the quality of service flow are traveling in the user plane, how do they travel? Like how their information would be carried from one end to the other end? There is a question. Can you please explain PDB for GRB again? Rahul, what you did not get that? Sorry, I missed your questions completely. Did I explain that part or did I miss that thing completely? You got that. Okay. Sorry. So how the data flows through this protocol stack? This is the user plane protocol stack that we have on N3 and the UU interface, NR UU interface between mobile to 5G AN. 5G AN here is representing GNodeB, and we have UPF. Crossing the UPF, we have the data network. Actually, traffic comes from the data network. Whatever that we get is called as IP packet. Typically, any IP packet that comes from the network, so these corresponding protocols will have to take up the duty and do their job. First, we will try to see what is present in this IP packet, kind of. What is present in this IP packet? The IP packet is kind of arriving from the application server. If you consider it as downlink one, the source IP address is application server, destination IP address is mobile phone, UE. And this is at IP level headers. If it is transport level headers like UDP or TCP, at that level you will have the port numbers. So there is a source port number that is present on the application server side, and there is a destination port number where on the UE side, this destination port number is linked with an application. All right. Once such IP packet is received, what is the duty that UPF is going to do once it receives the IP packet, especially in the downlink direction? It will have to inspect these IP packet related headers, find out this IP packet belongs to which mobile, which UE, that is done based on the IP destination address. Second one is you have to identify this IP packet should be sent on which QoS flow, which quality of service flow, especially when there are several quality of service flows that are existing for the subscriber, for the UE. If there is only one quality of service flow that is present for the subscriber, there is nothing you need to search for. But when there are multiple, then definitely you have to identify this IP packet should be sent on which QoS flow out of the multiple QoS flows this user is having. So who is going to take the responsibility and add that information in the form of the header? Such a protocol is named as PDU Session User Plane Protocol. And that is the protocol that we start with. PDU Session User Plane Protocol. This protocol is going to be present as one instance for one PDU session. So if you are working in two PDU sessions, there will be the two instances of this protocol, PDU Session User Plane Protocol. So it always works on a PDU session basis. Like if mobile is connected to three different data networks, there will be three different PDU sessions, and there are three different instances of PDU Session User Plane Protocol, each one working for one particular PDU session. What are its functions? Its function is to provision control information elements like the QFI, which is nothing but the quality of service flow ID, and RQI. RQI is related to your reflective quality of service identifier. So it kind of provide these the information elements. Information element is a fancy word for simple thing called as a parameter. We can simply call it as a parameter, protocol parameter. But in 3GPP terminology, any protocol parameter we call as the information element, fancy name. So it kind of decides these the settings that are associated with the PDU session. And then it downlink, it prepares this control information that need to be packed for the related to that particular PDU session at the UPF node and deliver this information to NGRAM node, nothing but G node being. So the UPF is responsible for detecting which IP packet belongs to which QFI, and for that particular IP packet data, is the reflective quality of service is applicable or not, especially in case of non-GBR scenarios. Such kind of thing identification is the duty of UPF node. Once done that, UPF node will have to send that information, identified the QoS flow information, etc. It will have to send that to the NGRAM node while forwarding the traffic, while forwarding the data. In uplink, it is done by the opposite entity. It is done by the NGRAM node. So NGRAM node receives the traffic from on the radio bearers. Then it kind of identifies the quality of service profile related information and send those details to UPF node. But ultimately, it is this protocol header is either going to be prepared by UPF in downlink scenario and prepared by NGRAM node in uplink scenario. That's it. Both of them are responsible for detecting the correct uh, quality of service flow identifier that is associated with this traffic that's going through. But one twist is that this particular protocol, PDU Session User Plane Protocol, won't be able to travel on its own. It kind of need to sit inside GTPU protocol and travel. So it is transferred on top of GTPU. So it don't have its own transport mechanism. This data need to be sitting inside GTPU, PDUS UPP after they adding the quality of service flow related details. Pack it in GTPU and send. So GTPU carries that information. GTPU carries that information in something called as the extension header. What is it? At the time when we are introducing GTPU, we'll study. But one thing we are learning is This PDU session user plane protocol data is going to be basically packed into GTPU. Okay. So what details that this guy would pack, this PDU session user plane protocol would pack? So these are the pieces of information that this guy adds. Of course, what I'm going to do, even though a lot of parameters are there, I would ignore the parameters that are not part of our curriculum. Maybe I'll keep this in the documentation I send you. So if you require to refer them in the future, you can refer them. But some of them I'll ignore those concepts because it will take a lot of time for me to explain. But we will kind of ignore them at this particular point in time. First one, quality of service flow identifier. This is needed. The QFI, the IP packet that we are packing belongs to which QFI? This QFI would be received by UPF will receive this QFI ID from SMF. Same way, NGRAN node also, Gnode B as well. Gnode B receives it in QoS profile. Reflective quality of service identifier. This is to indicate whether the user plane reflective quality of service shall be activated or not. So there is one flag. Typically, a flag is a 1-bit package, just 1 bit. That 1 bit can either be either 0 or 1. Such a thing is what we call as a flag. So this RQI, reflective quality of service indicator, is a flag bit. If the bit is set to 0, you are not enabling the reflective quality of service. But if the bit is set to 1, we are enabling reflective quality of service. But who decides whether the reflective quality of service is going to be enabled or not is the UPF. UPF will get that instruction from SMF. If SMF tells him that, hey, we wanted to enable the reflective quality of service in uplink, but I don't want to generate a NAS message and send it to the mobile. We have kind of decided to reduce the NAS signaling as much as we can. So I am telling you that we require to enable this reflective quality of service. Can you please go and send it to the mobile? Of course, UPF cannot send anything directly to the mobile. So what does the UPF do is, in this particular protocol message, PDU session protocol message, it will set this RQI bit to 1. Actually, this RQI bit will be carried all the way up to the mobile phone. Once mobile gets it, mobile understands it, and it then decides to activate this reflective quality of service. If it is requested by the network, especially it is being requested by the UPF, by packing that information in user plane, because this PDU session session user plane protocol data is considered as because it's typically called as user plane protocol, so it is user plane, it is not under the control part. Okay, normally how the quality of service properties would be sent from the network to the mobile? Two different ways. Network, which is nothing but SMF here, can send the quality of service information to the mobile in the form of QoS rules. But whenever SMF thinks that, hey, it is too much to send in every quality of service detail to the mobile in the form of NAS messages, it will be too much of NAS signaling. Instead, we can send the same instruction to the mobile by using the user plane also. Then what does the SMF do is, it kind of conveys this information to UPF in SDF template. Instruct the UPF that, hey, for the data that you are getting for this particular subscriber with so and so quality of service profile or with so and so quality of service properties, when you are sending the data to the mobile with the QFI ID, for example, is 4, for the QFI ID 4 guy, you please set this RQI bit to 1. The reflective quality of service indication bit, you please set it to 1. It kind of gives a hint. So UPF is going to send the information, because UPF is going to send it by packing along with the IP packet that you are sending. So it will be considered as a user plane procedure. This is what we have skipped in our previous slides. I have showed that this reflective quality of service is user plane mechanism. It is not a control plane mechanism. Where did we see it? What is that linking point I'm trying to make? The linking point is related to the previous one that I have showed when I'm introducing this 5QI part. So which one I'm talking about? This one. We have this reflective quality of service implementation in non-GBR, but this reflective quality of service enabling happens on user plane. So the linking comes here. So network decides if the quality of service, whatever is being implemented for downlink, if it need to be reflected in uplink, UE derives this rule after receiving the downlink traffic, how much data rate it is getting for downlink. The same rule it will have to apply for uplink. But it will get an instruction in the user plane as part of the protocol message. So that is that RQI. Paging policy indicator PPI, we are ignoring this paging policy. There's huge amount of information related to it. We are not interested in our present curriculum. Later, you can expand your knowledge level on that. Okay, next. Is not related to QoS. Quality of service monitoring packet. Now, 5G network not only provides the quality of service, but it will have a monitoring mechanism also. As part of this monitoring mechanism, it can add the timestamps at the time when it is generating the downlink packets. When I have received this downlink IP packet, it will add a timestamp. So what happens is when it is traveling and reaching the mobile and coming back in the uplink direction, you kind of can estimate the round trip time, how much time it took for the packet to go in downlink or for the packet to come in uplink. You can estimate separate times. Based on it, the network can find out what is the delay percentages, whether especially if it is GBR case, are we achieving that GBR or non-GBR case? Are we achieving that 98% rate that is associated with the GBR and non-GBR things? Are we achieving that or not? You kind of can estimate it. So that's why it is called as what? Monitoring packet. Quality of service monitoring, where you are adding timestamps. What is the meaning of a timestamp? Right now, the time is uh, 2022 year, 10th month, 28th date, 11:27 in the morning, and maybe 00 seconds and 995 milliseconds, whatever that whole timestamp, the timestamp would be appended. Now, once it received at the mobile will receive it one particular time. It will do the comparison. Okay, at 005 milliseconds, it was sent. I have received it 42 milliseconds. So it will do the deduction 42 minus 5. So it took 37 milliseconds for the traveling in the downlink direction. So you can kind of estimate the quality of service property is being achieved or not. For that purpose, we use this QoS monitoring. Of course, this would be there for both for downlink and as well as uplink. Uplink, I'll tell you. First, this is part is downlink. Um, Downlink QFI sequence number. You can add a sequence number for the packets, IP packets. When you are packing it into GTPU, you can add a sequence number, but you don't require sequence number in normal scenarios. But there is a special feature that is newly introduced in 5G called as duplicate transport connections, redundant transport connections between UPF and G-Node B. That means you can have multiple IP addresses present for UPF, multiple IP addresses present for G-Node B, and you can send the same traffic through multiple paths. Even if the one path you lose the data, on the other path you receive the traffic on the other routing path. So this is called the multi-homing feature. Using multiple addresses, multiple paths, multiple transport connections, you are trying to achieve redundancy, or you are trying to achieve reliability here. If, on one path, if you miss also, the second path will get you the packet. In such cases, in order to attend, in order to identify which one is a duplicate, which one is the original one, you need to number the packets that you are sending through these on the QFI flows. Of course, even if UPF do a Xerox copy of the data, send it in two different paths to eNode B or GNode B. GNode B won't be sending both of them to the mobile. Out of the two things received, only one would be sent to the mobile by throwing one duplicate into dustbin. But why are you sending the duplicate? It's kind of a reliability mechanism, reliability improvement mechanism. But when you are not using that feature, so this sequence number field would be set to 0. Sequence number won't be there. Similarly, we have the same mechanism applicable for MBS operations, multimedia broadcasting, which we'll ignore. Multimedia broadcasting related things. We are not studying that concepts. Okay. So based on that summary, this is the data. Downlink PDU session information that is added by the PDU session user plane protocol is as per this thing that is present, which is sent from UPF to NGRAN. Downlink PDU session information. In that, what details will be there? PDU type always will be set to 0. And there are 5 flags: QMP, SNP, MSNP, spare, PPP, RQI. Now, if QMP is to indicate whether we are enabling the, your, okay, I would point directly them to that. So this SNP is for this downlink QFI sequence number. If this field is present, it is going to be of size 3 bytes. When SNP bit is set to 1, when SNP bit is set to 0, then this field won't be present and this field itself will be completely missing. It is going to be considered 0 bytes. Octet is nothing but a byte. Octet or byte is equal to 8 bits. 3 octets means 3 bytes, or 3 into 8, 24 bits. But if the SNP bit is set to 0, it's going to be 0 bytes. It won't be present. But if the SNP bit is set to 1, then the sequence number is present. You need to include the sequence number for the QSI flow traffic that you are sending. Similarly, if MSNP is set to 1, then this MBS quality of service flow identifier is required. Otherwise, not needed. Now, if you are performing the QoS monitoring, quality of service flow monitoring, then this QMP flag will be set to 1. Quality of service monitoring flag would be set to 1. When it is set to 1, then this timestamp would be added. Then this 8 bytes of timestamp would be there. But when the QMP flag is set to 0, then this entire field will be absent. The size of it will be 0 bytes. It is not going to be 8 bytes. It is just 0 bytes. When the QMP flag is 0, the monitoring, if you are not performing the monitoring operation, quality of service monitoring operation. So 11 flag will represent the situation about 11 field, whether the field is present in the header or not. Spare is for future purpose. There is no use with it right now for time being. PPP flag will represent whether this PPI information is present or not present. PPI is payload protocol identifier, but we have ignored that part anyway. But again, point is, if it is set to 0, this PPI information would be absent. It would be 0 bytes. It won't be 1 bytes. But if the PPP flag is set to 1, then this PPI information would be present with 3 bits. 5 bits will be filled with the spare. 1 byte of information would be present totally. So now the point is, all these fields, this field, this field, this field, and this field, All these four fields will be dependent on these four flags. Whether these four flag values, whether they are set to zeros or ones. If this RQI is set to zero, that means we are not enabling reflective quality of service. So the data rate is applicable only in downlink. The same thing need not be reflected by the mobile equipment in uplink. So UPF is not setting it. SMF have not asked UPF to set it, UPF is not setting it. But if it is set to 1, definitely SMF would have asked the UPF to set it to 1, UPF setting it, and this information will go all the way to the mobile, and mobile detects that. It need to apply reflective quality of service. So whatever the data rate and whatever the properties that you are using in downlink, same properties would be applicable in uplink. That is what is going to be the meaning of that RQI bit. And now, there is this padding of size 0 to 3 bytes. It could be 0 bytes or up to 3 bytes maximum. In order to make this packet size 4 byte aligned or 32-bit aligned. So this PDU session information always must be 4 byte or 32-bit aligned. If the data you packaged, if it is not in multiples of 4 bytes or multiples of 32 bits, then you have to attach some number of bytes of padding in order to make it that particular size. For example, the first 2 bytes is kind of mandatory. These two things will always be there. First 2 bytes. Assume that these 4 parameters are not present. Their flags are set to zeros and they are not present. We are assuming. In that case, your PDU session information size is only 2 bytes, but 2 bytes is not a multiple of 4 bytes or 32 bits. 2 bytes is equal to 16 bits only. You have to make it at least 4 bytes or 32 bits. For that, you add 2 bytes of padding. You are allowed to add maximum up to 3 bytes of padding. But in this example, I am telling you, you add 2 bytes of padding. I'll tell you one more example. First 2 bytes is present. The PPP flag is set to 1. So the PPI flag field is present and third byte of information is also present. Remaining all the flags are set to zeros. So their informations are not there. So now in this case, so far the PDU size that you have prepared is 3 bytes, but according to the standard, it must be 4 byte alignment. So you are allowed to add 0 to 3 bytes of padding. You add exactly 1 byte of padding. So once you add 1 byte plus these already 3 bytes, total together it becomes 4 bytes. I'll tell you one more example. This is present and this SMP flag is set to 1. Remaining all the flags are set to zeros. So those fields are not present. This is not present. This is not present. This is not present. Only this is present. 3 bytes. 1 plus 1 plus 3, total size is 5 bytes. So your data size is 5 bytes. But if in order to do the 4 byte alignment, either 4 bytes is 4 byte alignment, next possible thing is 8 bytes. So obviously you cannot reduce the size, only you have to append it. You have to add the padding of size 3 bytes to make it 8 bytes. So 3 bytes of padding would be included in that particular case. So depending on what fields are present and what is the final output size, depending on it, the corresponding padding size will be decided. Padding size can be maximum of 3 bytes. Okay. And the last field, QoS flow identifier, the most important one. So the traffic that we have received, the IP packet that we are packing it into the GTPU, that belongs to which QoS flow, which quality of service flow. If for the subscriber, already 3 quality of service flows are created. For each quality of service flow, there is an ID associated, number associated. That number we induce into this particular header field here. So this is the downlink part, downlink PDU session information. What about uplink? Uplink also similar data will be there, You have the QFI, there is a QoS monitoring packet, and the downlink timestamp, whatever was sent in the downlink, the same stamp would be maintained. It will be repeated in the uplink once again to help the, once it is received back, the UPF kind of compare the previous value and the coming up value. And when the mobile equipment received the downlink packet in the downlink direction, when it received it, or when it is sending an uplink packet, when it originated the uplink packet, exactly at what moment the uplink packet, what is the uplink packet stamp time? That stamp time will be included. There is a delay result also that can be included in uplink. The delay result will be for radio interface. So how much time it took from the mobile equipment to Genode B. That kind of delay information also can be added. Now you can, once you receive the, at what time, for example, 994 milliseconds it started, and if delay result as at Genode B is indicated as 2, that means that at 996 it arrived at Genode B. By the time you are receiving it, it became 999. So you kind of do the total estimation. So for the total travel for the uplink packet, including radio delay plus the N3 interface delay together, is about 5 milliseconds to kind of come to that kind of conclusion. So like that. So different timestamps. In downlink case, only one timestamp is used, the one that is stamped by the UPF. But in uplink case, previous, sorry, whatever the uplink packet that is being sent right now, when it was generated, and how much delay happened for that on the radio interface, there could be extra N3 or N9 interfaces. On that interfaces, how much delay occurred, etc. These details can be present. Of course, the QFI sequence number can be there. Again, if redundant transport bearer is configured, like multi-IP transport is configured between the NGRAM node and UPF to provide higher reliability. So the information is almost similar, but with slight changes. PDU type value would be set to 1, not 0, 1. I forgot to modify that. It is 1. And QMP, again, the QMP flags are present or not. Downlink delay indicator, downlink delay results, uplink delay indicator, and so on. N3, N9 delay. For everything, you have one field, and SNP. SNP is related to the sequence number. So the sequence number over here. So for every field, we have one flag. The flag is set to 0, the field is present. The flag is set to, if the flag is set to 0, the field is absent. If the flag is set to 1, the field is present. But minimum 2 bytes, the header size is. In them, lot of them are flags. But the most important information is QoS flow identifier, which is of size 6 bits. And the possible values are 0 to 2 power 6 minus 1. 2 power 6 minus 1 is 63. So the total number of QoS flows you can have is up to 63. And what is the present QoS flow number? And there are a lot of flags introduced for the future purposes. They don't have any meaning right now. In the future, they wanted to introduce a lot of things, so they have kind of keep these things as some kind of a skeleton message. Identified these flags for future operations. In the future, they are expanding the features. So then they will use these flags for those operations. Right now, they don't have any meaning. There is no purpose. Simply, this new ID flag would be set to 0, and all these flags would be not even present when this is set to 0. But when it is set to 1, then all these flags are present. Each and every flag would be representing something else. But that something else is not yet defined in the present version of the protocol in release 17 up to the latest one. In release 18, 19, 20, they might define certain things for each flag. So all this information is added by NGRAN node. because it is the Gnode B who is sending the uplink packet, uplink PDU session information when it received uplink data from the mobile, and it is sending the information to UPF. What is the previous time value that was sent, and when you have received the packet, when you are generating the uplink packet, what is the downlink delay result, uplink delay result that happened on the radio interface, and so on, various other details interlinked. So these details, major important details are two. One is the QoS flow ID, the traffic belongs to which QoS flow, and the quality of service metrics. Quality of service monitoring information. So those are the kind of details that are either added by 5G AM node, which is your Gnode B, when it is sending, when it is receiving uplink traffic and pumping it into GTPU. Before it is pumped into GTPU, this header will be prepared by noting down all those timer related informations and QFI number, quality of service flow ID number. Then packed into GTPU, sent out. And this guy will be able to see the QFI ID and detect the traffic is arriving for which QFI. If you are exceeding the MFBR for that QFI, it will drop those packets as part of packet policing. You are not allowed to send more than whatever your subscriber rate. If you are trying to send excessive data, then those excessive packets will be dropped. Then automatically your application, by detecting those things, will slow down its traffic sending to the lower rate, because TCP will report the negative acknowledgements. Automatically you will be reducing your speed if you drop some of the packets. So QoS flow ID is required for UPF to detect the traffic belongs to which QoS flow out of multiple QoS flows that are generated. If that QoS flow is associated with a guaranteed bitrate, you kind of do the policing and validate whether the number of IP packets sent, number of bytes is within the MFBR limitation or not. If it is for the non-GBR bearers, non-GBR QoS flows, all the non-GBR QoS flows together should not cross the aggregate rates, session aggregate bitrate or user aggregate bitrate. You should not cross them. If you cross those values, again, those packets also will be dropped for non-GBR QoS flows. For GBR QoS flows, it is MFBR, MBF, MFBR, it is not MBFR. Maximum flow bitrate. If it crosses the MFBR, then the packets would be dropped as part of the policing, packet policing. But in case of downlink, when the traffic arrives, this guy adds the QFI ID and then packs the data and send it. Once it is received by the Gnode B extracts the QFI ID. It kind of need to shift that QFI ID to SDAP. It will be included in the SDAP protocol header. We'll study that SDAP protocol later. But Gnode we need to know what is the QFI ID. Stop here for 10 minutes. It is 11:50 now. Up to 12 o'clock, we take a break. We come back and complete the other two protocols as well.